This is the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James, and we're joined today by the Honorable Jim Costa. He represents the 16th Congressional District of California, member of the House Ag Committee, is Subcommittee Chairman for Livestock and Foreign Ag, also serves on Foreign Affairs and Natural Resources. That's a mouthful.
Well, thank you, Tony James, and it's nice to be on All Ag all day to speak with farmers, ranchers, dairymen, and women throughout the country who work hard, less than 4% of the nation's population, to do what no other country does better, which is put food on America's dinner table every night. And in terms of the quality and the quantity, and the ability to produce more than we can consume, and therefore we can help feed other parts of the world. So as a third generation farmer, and as I believe you know, Tony, it's my primary source of income, and I'm very proud to be an advocate on behalf of American agriculture, but also California agriculture. I'm a little provincial here, I come from what I like to call the breadbasket of California, and the good Lord's blessed us with so much of plenty in the San Joaquin and Sacramento valleys, and of course the Salad Bowl over in Salinas Valley is not too far away, and down south, and it's we don't often think about California as an agricultural state, but it is the #1 agricultural state in the nation, producing half the nation's fruits and vegetables, 20% of the dairy products, #1 in citrus production, and 80% of the world's almonds and 50% of the world's pistachios, and just a whole lot of incredible, cornucopia of food and fiber that we grow, although we don't grow as much cotton as we used to grow, but we grow high quality cotton, the Pima cotton that we're very proud of. And so as a kid who grew up on our family's farm from the time I was very young until my early 20s, I learned good work habits from my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle working on our 600-acre Portuguese dairy farm. It's a different farm today, but I think hopefully my dad and my uncle will be looking down and thinking that they're proud that we've kept it all in the family. But with selling the dairy 30 years ago and them passing on, we've reduced it's the same acreage, but my cousins and my sister and I farm, and so we have reduced acreage, and therefore we grow higher value crops and permanent crops, as we like to say, as opposed to annual crops. And but it's AgriPulse is along with your efforts, the All Ag News interview that you provide to inform the heartland of America that takes great pride in the agricultural production that we are able to do so well. It's my honor to be a part of your show.
Well, and you mentioned the diversity there. I think this is a perfect tie-in for work you did on the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, CFAP, and then CFAP2, because we found that CFAP1 missed out, or some producers missed out on that CFAP1.
That's true. And so when you look at the breadth and the width and the diversity of American agriculture, which we're all so proud of, this pandemic has affected every segment of American life in ways that we could not possibly imagine if we were sitting down in February of this year having a good glass of California wine and trying to imagine what would happen if we were required to, for health reasons, to close our restaurants and our schools. And what happened was take this incredibly complex and complicated food supply chain that we have in so amazing, in so many different ways, made so efficient and so effective. I mean, to think about it, you know, farm fresh food products, you know, to the grocery store, you know, within some cases hours off the farm, certainly not less than days, and to our restaurants, and to be able to, you know, for people who have gluten allergies, people who prefer organic types of food. I mean, it's just a very complex, complicated food supply system, and when you, with less than 4% of the nation's population directly involved in it, and all of a sudden those markets to restaurants. As an example, I didn't realize until my good friend Chairman Colin Peterson informed me, and we've had some tough times in the farm belts around the country on a region by region basis this year as a result of the closure of restaurants and schools, but that 70% of the bacon in America is consumed in restaurants. Now, I never knew that. And if you close restaurants, a whole lot of that consumption of bacon then all of a sudden is dramatically impacted. And sadly, we had to see depopulation of many of our pork producers as a result. But there are other unintended consequences. And so the CFAP2, the Corona Food Assistance Program, that we were able to reach an agreement, made a number of improvements because you just could not anticipate everything that's taken place. And we've included specialty crops that were not in the first package. That includes Pima cotton, raisins, wine grapes, and others. We've also extended the loss period from April 15th to the end of this year, December 31st, because a lot of farmers, ranchers, dairymen, and women are hurting as a result of the markets being so dramatically changed, commodity prices that have just, you know, dropped in ways we could not have imagined. So as I told Secretary Perdue back in the spring of this year when we were preparing the first CFAP1, I says, you know, we got to think about this not just as a lifeline, but I think we need to think about a safety net for American agriculture for the next year until I mean, this is going to be with us for a while. This just isn't, you know, it'd be nice to wish it away, but it isn't going to happen, and we hope we get a vaccine sooner than later, but even when that happens, the ability to fully supply up and get people vaccinated, they anticipate will be well until next year in sometime. So therefore, I think this effort, along with the passage of the continuing resolution this week in the House of Representatives that provides additional support for the Credit Commodity Corporation that will provide support for American agriculture is important. It's critical, actually. It's the safety net.
The last one here for you, because I know it's such a busy day for you, but I'd hate for you to go without having the opportunity to talk about the wildfires, and especially you've got that creek fire, pretty devastating. With about a minute left, what do you see happening on that front?
Well, the creek fire has burned over 286,000 acres as of today, and it's now the 6th largest fire in California's history, and that's right in my backyard. I toured the fire scene a week ago Friday, and over 500 homes and cabins that have been destroyed. And it really points out, as I said on the House floor last week, that the U.S. Forest Service is under the United States Department of Agriculture, and that's a critical part of our USDA managing America's forest. And we just haven't done a very good job over recent decades. And there are 3 factors I think we've got to work on. Some of them are short-term, some of them are long-term. One is we've got to provide more support to manage our forests better, to deal with clearing, to get the underbrush out, to have thinning of our forests, to deal with the fuel loads. You know, we had a situation in the West, especially in California, with the beetle bark as a result of the drought. Now, the beetle bark, you know, eats into trees, and the tree's natural defense is to emit sap. But with the drought, they couldn't do so, and so it's estimated we have over 100 million dead trees in California, and we've been trying to get them down, and a new concept I've learned in the last year called log decking. Now, these aren't the kind of decks you want to sit out and have a beer on, but there's not a biomass market sufficient to take away all those logs, and so they have provided an ample source of fuel for these fires. We've had the 6th largest fires in 20 years in California history, burning now over 3.2 million acres. But it's just not California, it's Oregon, it's Washington State, it's the West. And so one, we've got to do a better job of managing our forests. We started that efforts this year with the changes with the United States Forest Service by providing additional funding. In recent years, the money we have for forest management has ended up being used to put out fires, and we have to augment to put out more fires. So we're trying to make those meaningful changes. Secondly, land use policy. In the West, we got a lot of folks in the last 30 years that have moved to places where they didn't live before. You know, it's nice to want to live up in the forest, live in areas that are idyllic and all that kind of stuff. People want to retire, but it makes it much more difficult to manage those lands. And it's just not public lands. In California, as an example, over 60% of our forests are federal lands, about 5% are state lands, and the rest are privately owned. So this is a combination of trying to better manage our lands, whether they be owned by the federal government, the state, or privately owned, and that's a challenge. So land management is part of it, and then climate change. I mean, you know, we measure our rainfall in the West in 10-year averages. We have some years are really good years, we have average years, and then we have a lot of years that are drought. And so when you're measuring waterfall precipitation on 10-year averages and seeing that we're getting less moisture, which makes it, but when we do get the moisture, we build up the fuel load, and if we're not able to manage and thin the brush, the chaparral area, as well as the forest, you create a tremendous situation where lightning and sometimes man-made fires can just overwhelm you. And that's what's happened this year.
So much going on right now. We thank you for your time and your service, and will you come back and see us?
Absolutely. It's always good to be with you, Tony St. James. You do a great job in helping members of Congress and others tell the story on behalf of American agriculture. It's the best story I know, and we're so proud of, again, the American farmer, rancher, dairyman, and woman that every day works so hard, along with our farm workers and people that work in our food processing facilities. Let me close on this note. As I said, no one could have anticipated how our world would be turned upside down as a result of this pandemic. And certainly farming was never designed with a pandemic in mind, but neither is working in fields, neither is working in packing sheds or in food processing facilities. And we need to keep our workers safe. They are essential workers. They are a part of the team that puts that food on America's dinner table every night. So in this fifth package that we're looking at, we're trying to provide funding for worker safety. I think it's absolutely essential. We've seen outbreaks in some of our food processing facilities and packing sheds around the country, and people need to know that they can go to work safely and not go home and get this coronavirus or give it to members of their family. So that's very important as well.
Again, it's the Honorable Jim Costa from the 16th Congressional District of California, member of the House Ag Committee, on today's Agribusiness Report.
A farmer.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.